This encounter happened when I was about 10 years old. My sister and I were home alone since it was during the summer. Both our mum and grandmother were busy and therefore could not stay home with us. We were used to being alone during the summer, so it was not a big deal. The only thing we could do was not go outside nor open the door if someone knocked. During this day, I had gotten up and started to play The Sims 2 in our kitchen. My sister was watching TV in our den. A few hours into gaming, I thought I heard the doorbell ring. At first, I thought it was my game, but I had turned off the sound. So I asked my sister if she heard the doorbell. She replied that she had not, and she said it was probably just the show she was watching. I brushed it off and resumed playing my game. About 10 minutes later, I see a reflection on my computer of a man in a suit. His hands cupped around his eyes, looking through the glass door behind me. I turned around to be face to face with this strange man who I had never seen before in my life. I had no idea how long he had been watching me. He waved at me like he knew me from somewhere. I called my sister's name, who had not noticed the man yet, and she grabbed the home phone quickly to call my grandmother. Now, we had seen a salesperson before. None of them looked like this guy. He was wearing a full-on black suit that did not fit him. If not strange enough, this guy was wearing a full suit in 99 degrees and was also carrying a briefcase. All the salespeople I had seen only ever carried a clipboard, maybe a few flyers, but this man had a briefcase. The next flag that came with this guy was when he walked around our house to come to the back door, which during his little trip, he would have seen that there wasn't a car in the driveway, indicating that no one was home. As I was getting up to hide, the man reached down and grabbed the doorknob. He started jiggling it forcefully. Thankfully, the door was locked. He looked at me smiling, gestured at me to come and unlock the door for him. All the noise he had been making had now set off our 75-pound Labrador mix, making her go absolutely mad. No way was she going to let that guy in. My sister tells me our grandmother is now on her way, and she wanted us to hide in the back of the house in her room until she could get home. My sister hands me the phone, then runs into the kitchen to grab the biggest knife we have. I can hear her yelling at the guy that we had called the cops. She comes back into the room with me, and we close the door. She tells me that she lied about calling the cops, and said that he started laughing, like she had just told him the funniest joke he had ever heard. A little while later, we hear the door open, and it's my grandmother calling us. We come out to meet her, and she tells us that the man was nowhere to be seen. She'd walked around the house before unlocking the door. She also thought it was weird if he was a salesperson, because he would have left a note saying, "Sorry we missed you." She ended up taking the rest of the day off to stay with us. Also, she could watch to see if the man would come back around. It's been 11 years since this encounter, and I still do not want to know what was in his briefcase. Let's go all the way back to the mid-80s. We lived in the suburbs in a close-knit community, so I never had worries. 11-year-old me is home alone during summer break from school. My mum and dad both worked, so I was just chilling in the living room, blasting the stereo with the front door open. So a bit of backstory. My cousin was dating a guy named Jeff. They're married now with kids. Me and him hit it off instantly. He was a few years older, but treated me like a little brother, so we'd talk and pester each other quite a bit. At this time, we were fairly new in the friendship, but he would call to check up on me. The phone rings, and at this time I didn't have all the fancy things like cell phones or even caller ID. We had a push-button phone, which we brought to replace the old-school rotary dial phone not too long before then. And the conversation goes like this. "Hello? What's going on?" I think, "Cool, it's Jeff." "Nothing, just hanging around the house." "Are your parents home?" Jeff knew my parents worked, but perhaps he thought it was their day off. "No, they're both at work, man." "Ah, okay. So what are you wearing?" This is a bit of an odd question. Is Jeff just messing with me? T-shirt and shorts?" "Are you wearing underwear?" It dawned on me at this moment that it's not Jeff. It sounded like him, but my gosh, it wasn't him. "Who is this?" "David." "David who?" "David Sanders." "What do you want?" "I just want to talk to you." "I have to go." "Okay, see you soon." I hang up. At this point, my mind is racing. I have no idea what just happened. Who the hell did I speak to? And, well, I told him that my parents weren't home. Wait, did he just say talk to you soon? Nah. Okay, I've heard of prank calls before. Someone was just calling random people and messing with them for sure. Yeah, it must have been that. So for about 20 or so minutes, I'm roaming around my house with the door open, blasting music and trying to shake off the call. My mind keeps repeating that last line. See you soon. There's no way he could have been serious, right? Okay, let's go ahead and shut and lock the front door just to be sure. 3 minutes later, there's a knock on the door. I walk up to the front without opening and ask through the door, "Who is it?" "It's David." No way. I step to the window by the door and peek out. Sure enough, it's a guy in his mid-20s, smiling, giving me a wave. This cannot be happening. "What do you want?" "I just want to hang with you." My mind is blank. What do I say? What do I do? My dad is home. He's in the bathroom." "Oh, okay. Bye." No way can it be this easy. Of course not. I see the doorknob start to turn. This guy is trying to get in. Fortunately for me, it's locked. I wait a few seconds and look out the window. No one's there. Wait. What was that? I hear someone in the bushes by the front bedroom. I run there and see the guy is trying to open the window. He tries the next one, and the next one, but they're all locked. If I'd have been an adult, I would have dialed 911 as soon as he showed up, and spoken to him through the door until they arrived. But, as an 11-year-old, I called my mum. After that day, my parents set up a system that they would call, let it ring, hang up, then call again, and of course don't leave the door open. I never heard from David again, though when I was older I sure thought I would have liked to, and to explain to him why he shouldn't be there chatting up young boys. My mum used to date sketchy guys when I was a teenager. I didn't live with her much because she was a horrible role model. So my grandmother raised me for a big chunk of my life. I'm thankful for that, because she taught me so many values and how to be a lady. I later moved in with my dad and stepmom and half-siblings when I was 15, and had a wonderful life with them. When I was 14, I lived with my mother and her skeezy boyfriend Dale for a year, in the upper half of a duplex. Her boyfriend had this friend that would come over very occasionally, that looked just like the white guy from the Jerky Boys. same hair too, and he creeped me out because he would always stare at me, and I would always catch him doing so. My aunt lived down the block, and I would visit her quite frequently because she was the cool aunt. She was in her 20s, super fun and really pretty, and she had a 1969 Firebird convertible that we would drive around in and blast Aerosmith, as this was in the 90s. So with that said, I saw her brother-in-law, Jeff, quite a bit, because he was renting out her basement. I thought he was kind of weird, but an okay guy. So one night at about 11:30, I was home alone, and I get a knock on the door. Now our door had a square glass panel towards the top that was painted over with a little peephole scratched into the paint. I look through, and it's my aunt's brother-in-law, Jeff. I open the door and I'm like, "Hey, what's up?" He asks me if my mum or Dale are home. I said no, that mum was at work, and God knows where Dale is. He then asked me if I wanted to come downstairs because he wanted to talk to me. I trusted him because I considered him family, and I was also pretty timid and didn't like saying no to people. So I follow him downstairs to the front porch, and I see his car parked and still running on the street with the headlights on. And sitting in the passenger seat with the windows rolled down was the jerky boy looking dude that hung out with my mum's boyfriend. I paused and was like, And Jeff was like, "Hey, we want to talk to you. We want to ask you something." And he started to gently guide me into the car. My adrenaline was pumping, and all of a sudden, I felt that something wasn't right. I stopped and pulled back a little, and tried my best not to look scared. Jeff kept talking sweetly, running his fingers up my shoulders to fix my spaghetti strap, and saying, "It's okay, just come closer to me." And I pulled away politely and said it was okay. He can ask me right here. He kept sweetly trying to convince me to just come into the car so that we could talk, and said that it was okay if I was scared. I could just stand in front of the headlights. The second he said stand in front of the headlights, my stomach did a leap, and my whole body started to feel electrically charged, because I knew if I were to stand in front of the headlights, I would not be able to see and it would distract me, thus making it easy for one of them to grab me. I knew right at that moment I was in a very dangerous situation, so I started acting ditzy and dumb, because I was afraid that if they thought I was thinking that they were trying to do something that would land them in prison, he would just grab me right there and then to cover my mouth and drag me to the car, so that I wouldn't tell on him. So I started to playfully joke around, and said that I wasn't wearing shoes, and I didn't want to step in dog poop. Then I see Jerky Boy start to come out of his car, and then I just sprint to the house fast. I ran up the stairs and locked the door. I was shaking so badly. Jerky Boy knocks on the door about a minute later, and is looking through the makeshift peephole. He starts saying that he needs to talk to my mum's boyfriend. I say that he wasn't home, so he goes away from the door, but I didn't hear him go down the stairs. Then 30 seconds later, Jeff comes up and knocks, and is talking through the door, saying that he needs to talk to my mum's boyfriend, and he tries to open the door, but it's locked. I repeat myself, and let them know that they weren't home. Jeff starts saying things like, "I'm sorry we scared you, honey. We just want to talk to you about your mum and Dale," and give other awful excuses. I was scared that they were going to try and kick the door in, so I decided that I was going to try and sneak out the back. I walked towards the back door, and thank God that I looked out the back window first, because I saw Jerky Boy standing downstairs at the back door. So Jeff was at the front door sweet-talking me, and his friend was waiting by the back door. I know what you're probably thinking, right? Call the cops. I don't know why I didn't. I think it was because I was so naive and timid, and this guy was my uncle. I was also questioning myself and my judgment, because Jeff kept reassuring me at the front door. So I get to the front door, and Jeff is still there talking to me, and telling me that he felt bad for scaring me. And I tell him through the door, trying my best to disguise any hint of fear, that it was okay, and that I was sorry I got spooked, and that it wasn't his fault, and I just tried my best to placate him and convince him that I believed him. They eventually left, and once the coast was clear, I snuck out and ran to my friend's house next door. I didn't tell them anything, I just said I was scared and wanted to stay there until my mum came home later. I did tell my mum though. Nothing really happened, and I thankfully moved to my dad's house 45 miles away 3 months later, and I never saw him again. When I look back on it now, years after it happened, I only perceive just how dangerous of a position I was in. I'm so glad I stuck with my gut, ran back and locked myself in, because as most of you can imagine, they had very nefarious plans for me indeed.